Hi, and welcome to episode 7 of the Pharmacist podcast. We're doing podcast today. Hi, welcome to episode 7 of the Pharmacy Lounge podcast. Today we speak to our guest, Paul Summerfield. And with our previous podcast about alternative careers and what pharmacists can do with their degree, today we'll be talking to Paul Summerfield about the legal side and how, as a pharmacist, why he became a lawyer and started practicing law, and how you, if you're interested as a pharmacist, if you want to go look into the legal side, what routes you can follow. So welcome to the show, Paul.
Thank you.
Again, you've been a guest a couple of times, and it's always good to have you on the show. So tell us a bit more about yourself and what made you go into law after you qualified as a pharmacist. And tell us a bit more about all the technical details. I know, is it a solicitor? Is it a lawyer? I get easily confused with these titles, as you know. Tell us a bit more about that as well, and how pharmacists can go into law if they're interested.
Of course, yeah. So thank you for inviting me onto the show this week. Very, very humbled to be asked back to go through my alternative career path, let's just say. So I qualified from Sunderland in '96, did my pre-reg and came onto the register in '97. I've quickly got quite frustrated with the sheer mechanics of pharmacy in the community setting, to be honest. I was also pursuing a medicinal chemistry PhD at the time, but unfortunately that didn't work out. So in '98, I decided with quite a heavy heart to come away from PhD studies and to look at locuming full time. That got pretty old very quickly. And I always remember talking way to one of my friend's mums, to be honest. She was telling me about how she was going to become a barrister. It sounded quite interesting. And working in the community pharmacy setting as well, you pick up a lot of the things which law can really help you with. So I decided to do a law degree instead of a postgraduate diploma in law, the GDL. The reason for that is because I was told, quite rightly, that a law degree gives you a better footing if you're going to carry it through and go on to further and better things. So I did a law degree, took 3 years instead of the 4. They knocked a year off for good behaviour because I had a previous degree. Then went straight into a Master's of Medical Law. I did that part-time distance learning. Sorry, I forgot to mention I did the law degree part-time as well, so that was 2 evenings a week for 3 years. Then the Masters in Medical Law was 6 weekends over 2 years. Then in 2005, the University of the West of England began to run the bar vocational course part-time. It was one of the very few, in fact, I think it was the first provider to do that outside of the Inns of Court School of Law in London. So I enrolled on that, and that was every third weekend for 2 years. Upon completion of the bar vocational course, I was then called to the bar in Lincoln's Inn in November 2007, and I have been there ever since. Now, you mentioned something that is quite rightly around about titles and what you can and cannot call yourself. Now, the term or the title solicitor or barrister are protected by law. The term lawyer isn't. So anybody can call themselves a lawyer, anybody at all. However, to call yourself a solicitor or a barrister, you must have a practicing certificate. You must have been either enrolled at the Law Society or called to the bar and gone through pupillage with the barrister's qualification. Now, unfortunately, pupillage evaded me for a number of years, and I decided to stop after 3 or 4 years of attempts at obtaining pupillage. I decided not to go down that route anymore. However, what the Bar Council have said, and what they are quite adamant on, is that the term used to be non-practicing barrister. It's now an unregistered barrister, and that is a barrister who has gone through the academic training but has not gone through pupillage and therefore does not have a practicing certificate. I fall into that category, so therefore I can either call myself an unregistered barrister or I can call myself a lawyer. I hope that clarifies it slightly.
Slightly, yes. So in terms of getting a pupillage, is it really difficult to, is when you have to go into and work for a law firm, is that like basically a pre-reg training?
You can, it's very akin to pre-reg, and unfortunately the competition is immense. You're talking about 400 to 500 pupillages per year throughout the UK. You're talking about 3,000 to 5,000 candidates chasing pupillage every single year, and they can do that for up to 5 years post their bar vocational course, as it was for me. Now it's the bar professional training course. It's extremely competitive, extremely competitive. And they do go back right away into your A-levels as well. So they're looking at your full academic record. And unfortunately, I wasn't a strong enough candidate to be able to attain an interview for pupillage, or in fact to attain a placement for pupillage. So it's one of the regrets that I didn't chase it further. However, I haven't let that hold me back, and I've gone on to do other things.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you've been great help on the Telegram network. You've advised a lot of pharmacists, and obviously you have a lot of clients. So as a pharmacist, how useful have you found it being studying law at the same time and having a better understanding of medical law?
Well, with the background to law, it gives you more confidence because you can state things with the knowledge that you have the backup. You've got the knowledge in order to back up your statements. For example, a lot of the times I'm asked to advise on contractual disputes, and I was advising on a contractual issue earlier on in one of the Telegram groups. Again, it gives you the confidence because you know the law, you can apply that law to that specific situation, but you can then use your experience as well to give the most appropriate advice. So it's not always necessarily, this is the law, this is how it's going to go. It's, this is the law, this is how it should go, and these are your potential avenues to explore. And my advice would be to explore this avenue. So it's about taking a pragmatic approach as well. It's not, I'm right, you're wrong, see you in court, although sometimes it did get to that. It's, I'm right, you're potentially wrong, I'm going to tell you why you're potentially wrong, and I'm going to hopefully work to get this resolved.
Yes, I suppose that makes sense. I think one thing in pharmacy, we don't have much training. I mean, we have the law and ethics, and
yeah,
everyone falls asleep on those lessons, I think. Not many people pay. I know. To be honest, I think it's the way it's taught as well. Like when I was in uni, back in 2003, 4, doing the law and ethics, Dale Appleby book on law and ethics. It was just basically a few case laws, and it was very basic application of the law. Obviously, MEP goes into a lot more detail, but again, I think pharmacists were supposed to apply our clinical and legal knowledge in practice, but we don't tend to apply that much of it, apart from knowing which prescription and all the legal aspects of a prescription. But when you're working, there's actually a lot more that's contractual. Whereas for locums, it's knowing, what does the latest version of the locum contract say? What does it allow you to do? I mean, you get so many messages saying, "Well, I've just had my shift cancelled and it's tomorrow. Legally, what's my right?" Well, you should have read the contract.
Yeah,
No one reads the contract.
Yeah.
I think these are the things that we should have been taught in university, that it's not just the MEP and a few legal cases where if you cover something up or if you make a dispensing error, you're going to get into trouble. You get into PHC or you'll face the law. You'll be sued, that kind of stuff. But there is the more practical day-to-day aspect of being employed. Those areas hardly ever get covered, or almost never get covered, that I'm aware of. And any pharmacists I speak to, they don't really understand the legal aspects of employment, a locum contract, employment contract, anything like that. Obviously, you're a lecturer as well at Sunderland University at the moment, aren't you?
I was at Sunderland. I'm now at Reading.
Reading. So,
yeah.
Are the universities giving more emphasis on the contractual side of law within the pharmacy profession, or are we still just going with the usual MEP and good old Appleby?
Of course, the contractual side in relation to contract law, employment law, is a business part of the undergraduate degree. Unfortunately, I can't comment on that. Each university does have a separate spin on looking at the business side. And yes, I agree with you. It should be taught. It should be taught more robustly. However, we've got to remember what the pharmacy degree is about. It's about becoming a pharmacist. It's not about becoming a specialist in contract law or in employment law. But yes, it would be helpful, in my opinion, if those bases were touched upon. Going into the independent prescribing course, which I teach on at Reading, I do the Law and Ethics Day and lead on that. Then in relation to looking at employment law, yes, we look at employment law, we look at vicarious liability, but we also look at the law and how to apply it in practice as well, because it's a very pervasive element, very pervasive indeed. And it touches upon everything. So we look at how to apply the principles. We teach the principles. We look at how to apply the principles into practice. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I now do, and I frequently do, and it's always in the back of my mind, is the advice I'm giving now, what should I be adding on to that, if anything, in case something comes back to me? So it's always thinking, right, from a patient's perspective, yes, I've got to give them advice, but also what do I have to give them further and on top of that, so that in the event something does come back, I can turn around and say, well, this is my usual practice. This is how I do things. Why would I have departed from this normal practice in this one case? So it's always in the back of my mind, what can I do? Is there anything else to do in case it comes back? But I do agree with you. I do think the business side of the profession, which a lot of us will go into at some point, either as an employee or as a self-employed contractor or as an owner or as a manager or as a senior manager, we all have this, and we get trained on the job, but we need a baseline to start with. Unfortunately, that baseline is very, very, very lacking in a lot of the degree courses that I've seen.
Mm-hmm. And I think this is the reason why we face so many issues a lot of the times. I mean, if you just purely go into the locum groups, all these cancellations, all these legal issues, that could easily be resolved if we had better understanding of, at least a basic understanding of contract law and how that works. I mean,
of course.
Yeah. So, I mean, for any pharmacists, obviously, there's still a lot of pharmacists who are at the moment looking at alternative careers with the current lockdown. So anyone who's interested in going into law, what would your advice be?
Right. Well, a lot of lawyers, if you ask them this, would say stay well away, to be honest, run for the hills. If you're really interested, go and do a degree in law. If you're really interested. If you can't afford to do another degree or to do a further degree, do the graduate diploma in law. Then look at where you want to go with that. Do you want to just leave it at that and have that background and carry on? Do you want to go and look at, say, working for either PDA, PSNC, Department of Health and Social Care? There's very, very wide sphere of jobs out there for individuals who have got a science background and then have a legal background. A lot of the times, a lot of scientists who have studied law and have qualified either as a solicitor or barrister go into intellectual property because we're set up like that. We're set up very analytical and we can really delve into things. It's just a lot of scientists fall into that who've gone and studied law, go into IP. I did the other thing. I started to get an interest in regulatory law, as in regulation of healthcare professionals. So that's how I fell into that. And in 2012, set up my own company, as a lot of you will be aware of, and have represented registrants actually from before then, so 2009, 2010. It's a very satisfying career option, very satisfying. To me, I enjoy helping people. I enjoy talking. Again, a lot of people who know me know I love to talk. I could sit here and talk for hours, to be honest, but I know we're very time limited, so I won't. I love talking to people. I like the satisfaction of being able to help somebody, which I hope we would all do as pharmacists, irrespective of whether or not we've done other things. But, that satisfaction is there. For example, I was giving advice yesterday to somebody regarding a fitness to practice issue. The week before, I was giving somebody some advice on a Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock. I've been on the phone at 11, 12 at night giving advice. So, my standard day can be quite varied, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. And do you work full time as well as a pharmacist? Or is it just in between? Are you locuming on a few days a week and then focus full part of the week on the law side?
Yeah, so basically, it's a good question. So what I do is I use locum work as my base income. Mm-hmm. So I'll locum 4 to 5 days a week. I'll then be on the phone. As soon as I leave a locum gig, I'll be on the phone to somebody giving some advice. If I haven't been able to get that through lunch, or, that can happen up till 10, 11 o'clock at night, sometimes even longer. But most of the times, individuals will contact me on a weekend, on a Saturday or a Sunday. I don't mind. That is part and parcel of what I do. It's a service that I offer. It's out of normal office hours, and it tends to suit a lot of people. Now, I'm not saying that's the ideal business model. I'm not saying that at all. But for me, it works. And for the individuals who advise, it works. For example, I have a meeting with a registrant at 7:30 on Wednesday evening regarding a fitness to practice case. But that's fine because it works for them. It's outside of their working hours. They don't have to go and hide in a cupboard or go outside to take a call. It also works for me because it's outside my normal baseline income. Mm-hmm. So, it's very varied and very wide.
Mm-hmm. I suppose it works really well then because obviously you're a pharmacist, your clients are all pharmacists. We kind of have that timetable, we know, from 9 to 6. We can't really make any phone calls, taking phone calls, and obviously you have these companies locums on the phone again. So I suppose, yeah, it works out really well working after 7 and trying and speaking to your clients at that time. And we're going to have to call it a day on that one today. So thank you for coming in, Paul. It was really wonderful to have you back on the show. And it was really insightful to know your journey into law, and for anyone who wants to obviously get into law, what you follow, how to go into it and practice. So I'm going to end it there. And for our viewers, we're doing another mini series on law and ethics with Paul, where we discuss case laws. So we're going to, for our next episode, we will have basically a full podcast dedicated to going through case laws. So hopefully that should help a lot of you guys out there who've been asking for advice on certain issues. And we'll try and find examples based on real life issues, real life scenarios, which should really help you guys understand how to deal with things. So yeah, until next time, see ya. Bye.
Bye.